Hi everyone, this is HM&S video number 71 and you are most welcome for it. In our previous videos we have been talking about the measures of central location or central tendencies, and we were focusing on the mean, median and the mode. That means we were focusing at getting one value from the middle of the data set to represent our data set. But we are always not stuck to getting only the values from the middle of the data set. We can actually get a value from anywhere within our data set to give us the information we want. That's why today we are going to talk about a measure which is actually very important called the percentile, and we are going to do it in Excel. Now percentile and percentage might sound like the same thing, but they are two different things, and we are going to see the difference in this very video. Percentile divides our data set into 100 different parts. Also, percentile is actually very special in a way that in Microsoft Excel there are actually two functions that is used to calculate percentile, and what is special about it is that the two functions results into two different answers, and we're going to see why exactly do they calculate differently in this very video. And also there's a very big debate about percentile that mathematicians and statisticians have been having for very many years. We're going to talk about it at the end of this video, so let's switch on to it and we get to know more about percentile in Microsoft Excel. Now for the students and those people who find it easier to understand things mathematically, this is how the percentile is expressed. Now this formula here calculates for you the percentile position. It doesn't give you the value exactly, but it gives you the position where that value is located in your data set. It says the percentile position is equals to k into n plus 1 divided by 100. Now this pk is the k's percentile position. Then the n is the total number of values in the data set, and then the k is the value corresponding to the percentile needed. For example, if you want to get the 25th percentile, then k will be 25. I told you percentage and percentile are different. Percentage actually means part of the whole. Like for example, if you get 80% in an exam, that means you got 80 out of the total, which is 100. Now when it comes to percentile, it gives you the marker, that is your position, that's separating the data set into two. So one part is above you and one part is below you. For example, if you have the 80th percentile, that means 80% are below your position and 20% are above your position. Or for example, if there are 100 students in a class, then it means you did better than 80% of the students. So your position is actually that marker that is separating the data set into two. Now percentage, as most of you already know, is actually presented using the percentage sign like the 80% you see here. But for the percentile, it's presented using the TH. So this one is called the 80th percentile and this one is the 25th percentile. There are actually two different Excel functions that's used to calculate percentile. The first function is called percentile.EXC. Now this EXC simply means exclusive. That is percentile.exclusive. That means it excludes something. Now the other function is called percentile.INC, and this INC means inclusive. So percentile.inclusive, that means it's including something. Now what is it including and what is it excluding? The percentile.exclusive exclude the minimum value and the maximum value. So when you want to get the percentile but you want to exclude the minimum value and the maximum value, then the percentile.exc is the function you should use. But if you want to include the minimum value and the maximum value, then you should use the percentile.inc. Now because there's that exclusion and inclusion of the minimum value and the maximum value, the two functions calculate differently. They use two different algorithms for calculation. Percentile.exclusive or percentile.exc uses this formula here to get to the percentile position. For the percentile.inc, it uses k into n minus 1 plus 1. Now you don't actually need to cram these formulas. The Excel function is going to ease everything for us. I just wanted you to know how the function work. Now let's scroll down and we see examples that will help us to make sense out of those formulas. Here I have the interview example. We have here the interviewee and then the final interview results. So we're going to calculate the 65th percentile for these interview results. Now before we use the Excel function, I first want to show you how these formulas work. They all need you to calculate the n and k. So let's start by that. So our n is actually going to be equals to the count. Tap to select it and we're going to count these final interview results. And when I hit enter, we have a total of 10 different interview results. Now for k, we simply want the 65th percentile. top. Now this formula here uses the 65th percentile as it is, but for the Excel functions it needs the value between 0 and 1. That means we need to divide this by 100, since percentile divides our dataset into 100 different parts. So I'm going to do equals to this divide by 100, enter. Now we are going to start by doing the maths way, that is using this formula here. So equals to, now we need to get k, which is this value here, and then times, I'm going to put it in bracket, and then n, which is this 10 plus 1, I'm going to close my bracket, divide by 100. So when I hit enter, you can see according to this formula it's saying the 65th percentile is found at the 7.15 position. Now if you check our data set, I've already sorted it in ascending order, meaning from smallest to largest. So when you come to the 7th position, which is this one here, you can see the value which is corresponding to the 7th position is 82. Our position here is actually not an integer. That means if we simply get 82, that will not be a correct answer. The exact value that is corresponding to the 7.15 position is actually in the middle between 82 and 84. So we are going to see how we can get to that. The formula that the percentile.exclusive used to get the percentile position results into the same answer as this formula here. Let's prove that. So I'm going to click here and then do equals to, we're going to use this formula here. We're going to use this as our k, and then times in bracket n, then plus 1. So I'm going to close my bracket, and when I hit enter, you can see it's also giving us the same answer as this formula here. Now I've told you that there are two functions in Excel that's used to calculate percentile, but actually there are three. We also have one compatibility mode function that has been around since 2007, but it's still there. It has just been replaced by these two functions here. So that function actually works the same as the percentile.inclusive. Let's first get the position for the percentile.inclusive. So I'm going to do equals to k, which is this value here, and then times, I'm going to open my bracket. So this time around we need to do n minus 1. So I'm going to do n minus 1. Then I'm going to close my bracket. Then we need to add 1 to it. So when I hit enter, you can see for the percentile.inclusive, it's giving us the position that's before the position for the percentile.exclusive. That means the value is going to be smaller than the value for the percentile.exclusive. Now just to show you that this formula here and the formula for percentile.exclusive actually gives you the same results, let's first keep on changing this k. If we decide to do the 35th percentile, when I hit enter, you can see the 2 is giving us the same answer. Again, if I do the 55th percentile, control enter, the same answer. 90th percentile, control enter, they are always giving us the same answer. I'm going to change it back to 65th percentile. Now after getting these percentile positions, how can you get the percentile value? Now if the position is exactly an integer, like for example if it was just 7 or 7.0, you could just come to this table, you check the 7th position, then you come and pick the value, then you put it here. For our case, we are not having an integer. This is 7.15. That means we need to go to the 7.15 position, then we pick the value that is there. That means also the value we're going to get will actually not be one of the values you are seeing here. Now before I use the Excel function, let me also show you how you can do it without using the Excel function. If you have a decimal point, then you need to use this formula here. I've actually just written it so that we can get to understand it very well. The value at the integer position, like for example, if this is the position, then the value which is corresponding to the 7th position, then we need to add to it the difference between the value after that, which is the value at the 8th position, that is 84, minus the value at the 7th position, that is 82. Then we need to multiply it by the decimal part. Like for example, the decimal part for this case is 0.15 or 0.15. So on this cell here, I'm going to do equals to the value at the 7th position, that is the value at the integer position, is 82, but we need to add in bracket the difference between the value after the integer position, which is 84, minus the value at the integer position, which is 82. We get that different, but we need to multiply that different times the decimal part, which is 0.15. Now There are actually Excel functions that can help us to get just the decimal part from a value like this, but I'm just going to add code that one in just for now. So we need to multiply it by 0.15. Now when I hit tab, you can see instead of giving us just the 82, it's giving us 82.3. So that's now the percentile. Now let's also get the value for the percentile.inclusive part. So we also use the same formula here. So it's going to be equals to, but remember this time around, the position is not 7.15, the position is 6.85. So we're going to the 6th position, that is the integer part, and that is 70. And then we need to add to it. I'm going to put it in bracket. The value after, which is 82 minus 70. I'm going to close my bracket. Then we need to multiply it by the decimal part, which is 0.85. So when I hit enter, you can see we have got two different answers. Now again, there is actually no need of using these formulas or cramming it. The Excel function that I'm going to show you now will actually make everything easy. Now let's start by getting the percentile.exclusive using the Excel function. So I'm going to click on this cell. So it's equals to percentile.exclusive. When I see it highlighted in blue, I hit tab to select it. Now it needs the array and then the care. So our array is actually going to be the interview results, which is this one. I'm going to hit comma. Now for the care, when you're using the Excel functions, you also need to put the value between 0 and 1, which is this. So when I close my bracket, now this function does not actually calculate for you just the position. It calculates the position behind the scene, and then it goes on to get even the value, and it displays for you the value, not the position. So when I click enter, you can see the percentile value when we use the percentile.exclusive is 82.3. Just the same as when we use this formula and this one here, we got the same up here. Now before we do the percentile.inclusive, I want to show you the compatibility mode, how it works also. So it's equals to percentile. It is this one here. As you might have already known, in a function in Excel that is having this yellow triangle, that means it's actually a compatibility function. And this one is actually compatible with Excel 2007. So when I see it highlighted in blue, I'm going to hit tab to select it. It also has the same argument, the array, this final interview results, comma, and then for the care is this one here. So I'm going to close my bracket, and when I hit enter, you can see it's giving us the same value as the inclusive we got up here. The percentile and the percentile.inclusive, it actually works the same way. So let's do also the percentile.inclusive equals to percentile.inclusive. So I'm going to hit tab to select it. The array is going to be this interview results, comma, the care is going to be this one. I'm going to close my bracket, and when I hit enter, you can see that percentile and percentile.inclusive actually results into the same answer. So every time we are going to get percentile, we are actually going to be using Excel function. We are not going to use these formulas you're seeing here. We just did that in order for us to understand how the percentile works. Now let's scroll down to here. I have the April sales. These are the sales agent and these are the sales. We want to get the sale which is at the 0th percentiles, 25th percentile, 65th percentile, 90th percentile, and then 100th percentile. But later on we are actually going to discover that there's actually nothing like 0th percentile and 100th percentile. But let's see what will happen. So I'm going to start with percentile.inclusive. So I'm going to click here, equals to percentile.inclusive, tab to select it. The array is going to be this, and then comma, the care. Now before I go to the care, I'm going to copy this formula down. So I'm going to lock the array. I'm going to click on this array and hit the F4 key to lock it. Then very carefully I'm going to come to the end, click, comma, and then put the care, which is this value here. Close the bracket, control enter. Now I'm going to copy my formula down. Let's also do the percentile.exclusive, then we see what happens. Equals to percentile.exclusive tab. The array is this values here, comma, the care. I also forgot, I'm going to backspace. Click on the array because I'm going to copy my formula down. I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock it. Then comma, the K is going to be this, close parenthesis, and when I control enter, let's first copy our formula down. You remember I told you that percentile.exclusive actually exclude the minimum value and the maximum value. That's the reason why we are getting errors for percentile.exclusive. For percentile.inclusive, we actually got the minimum value at the 0th percentile, then the maximum values at the 100th percentile. But literally, there's actually nothing like 0th percentile and 100th percentile. We're going to very soon find out more about that. But let's first scroll down and we do our last example, which is the end of semester examination marks. So here are the marks. So I'm going to click on this, equals to percentile. We are starting with the percentile.inclusive tab. So I'm going to click on the marks, control shift down arrow, control backspace. Now since I'm going to copy my formula down, I'm going to hit the F4 key to lock it, then comma. For the K, I'm going to click on this, close my bracket. When I control enter, then I'm going to copy it down. Let's also do the percentile.exclusive equals to percentile.exclusive tab. The array is going to be this marks, control shift down arrow, F4 to lock it, comma. The K is going to be this, close parenthesis. When I control enter, of course, I'm going to get the error. Then when I copy it down, I'm also going to get the error here. Now, I've got the minimum value using the min function here, and then the maximum value using the max function here. Now, the minimum value is 25 and the maximum value is 100. So, when you use the percentile.inclusive, it gives you the minimum value. When you use K as 0 at the 0th percentile, it gives you the minimum value. And when you put K as 1, it gives you the maximum value. While for the percentile.exclusive, it actually excludes the minimum value and then the maximum value. Instead, it gives you the error for those two values. Now, between the two functions, which one should you actually use when you are getting percentile? Now, all these are estimates. All of them gives you answers. Sometimes the answers are different. But if the dataset is actually large enough, they will tend to give you the same answer. You can use any of the two functions, the one you prefer. But for me, I prefer using percentile.inclusive because it includes for me the minimum value and the maximum value. Now let's scroll down a little bit and we talk about this debate here. There's this note here and it's saying there's no zeros and 100th percentile, and here is the reason. No value exceeds itself. That means if you are the 100th percentiles, it's like you have done better than everyone, including yourself, which is actually not true in real life. So if you have done better than everyone in a test, you are the 99th percentile. You have done better than 99% of the people. Also, you can't score worse than yourself. If you also get, like, for example, 0, still you're not at the 0th percentile. You're at the 1st percentile. That means 99% of the people did better than you. Or let's put it this way. You can't get a value that is bigger than the maximum value, or you can't get a value that's smaller than the minimum value. So you cannot get to 100% minus your value. Yeah, that is it about percentile in Excel. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. And if you found this video interesting, give it a like, then you share it with your friends. This is a video where we talked about geometric mean. You can click on it, then you go and watch it. Until next video, HM&S video number 72, then we meet again. Thank you.